Good afternoon. Uh, Thank you for joining us for our session, Building Stronger Partnerships Across Economic Development, Planning and Development. My name is Thomas Lampo. I serve as the Director of Southern Section of the Arizona chapter of the American Planning Association. I'm also a member of the Arizona Association for Economic Development, and I'm currently an associate with Norris Design. We are a planning, landscape architecture, and branding firm, and I sit in our Tucson office. I work on master plans, long range plans, economic development projects, and municipal development projects throughout Arizona and the Southwest. And on behalf of the APA Southern Section, I want to just thank you all for joining us today. One of our goals as an organization is to bring together professionals from different disciplines to have meaningful conversations about the issues that are shaping our communities. And I think today's discussion is a great example of that, bringing together different perspectives from planning, economic development, and private development. The southern section of the APA, Arizona, is the regional division covering a portion or all of Pima, Pinal, Yuma, Santa Cruz, Cochise, Graham, and Greenlee counties. Our membership is composed of public and private sector planners, students, elected officials, and others in the planning and development community. And our goal is to bring you sessions just like this, along with networking events, mentorship opportunities, and so on. If you're interested, we do have some events coming up in the near future, so please be sure to follow us on LinkedIn. I'm going to hand it over to Madeleine for an introduction to AAED. Madeleine.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. So AAED, if you're from the planning world, is basically the economic developers version of APA. So AAED serves as the statewide advocate for economic development. They have three main pillars: educate, advocate, and collaborate. And they continue to, build positive relationships, help economic developers do our jobs well. So if you're interested in AAED, you like this event, they plan a plethora of other events throughout the year. It's a great organization. So if you want to join, Katie put a link in the chat. You can also reach out to Katie or Juliana. Specifically with this event, it was, co-partnered with APA, but the committee specifically that is running it is the Emerging Leaders Committee. I have the honor of being the chair of the committee. I also serve as the Economic Development Specialist at the City of Tempe, So AAED Emerging Leaders Committee is specifically for economic development professionals or economic development adjacent professionals who have under 5 years of experience in economic development or who are under 35. So if you're interested in, growing your career, learning more about economic development, we provide programming, networking opportunities, education to really just help build future leaders and to help everybody grow personally and professionally. So if you want to join, please reach out to Ryan or I. We also are on the AAED website as well. I'll turn it back over to you, Thomas.
Thank you. Great introduction. So I'm really excited about our panelists today. I think we have a great panel, a great discussion coming your way. And so I'm going to hand it over to first Harry Paxton, who's with City of Buckeye. Did you want to introduce yourself, Harry?
Yes. Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, it's great to be here with everyone. Harry Paxton, I'm the Deputy Director here in the City of Buckeye. And so happy to be here today and talk about economic development and how we certainly coordinate with other key disciplines such as planning and development within our city and throughout the area. So thank you.
Thank you. And let's just stay right in order of those on the screen. So Jackie, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Thomas. Hello, everyone. I'm Jackie Vega. I'm a project manager with the City of Tucson in the Economic Development team. I'm really excited to be here.
Thanks, Jackie. Okay, Tom, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Tom Druzgowski. I'm the Deputy Director here at Development Services for Pima County. I'm in charge of the planning, operations, and code enforcement divisions, work closely with our building and site development, and always looking to streamline processes and provide a better environment for our residential and commercial developers.
That's great. Thanks. Okay, and last but definitely not least, McKay, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So, McKay Stevens, I work for Bourne Companies. We are a Tucson developer. We work on larger mixed-use projects, and I am a development principal, and I work on the commercial side of our projects.
Awesome. Okay, so the way that our session is broken up, we're going to have a moderated Q&A, about 40 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it over to our presenters to give us an overview of some of the projects that they currently have in the pipeline, and that will be about 20 minutes. And then we would like to open it up for audience Q&A for probably the last 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. We'll see how we do on time of the session. We have a question and answer box. If you can't see it, it's at the bottom of your screen. As we go through the session, if you want to just type any questions that you have for our presenters into that Q&A box, we will get to those in order at the end of our presentation. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so the first question I have for you guys is about misconceptions between the disciplines. So planning, economic development, private developers, they all influence our communities, how they grow, but they operate with different goals, timelines, and measures of success. So this question is for everyone, and we can start in the same order from Harry, Jackie, Tom, and McKay. From your perspective, what's the biggest misconception each profession has about the others?
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas. Yeah. One of the things I've always encountered in my career as an economic developer is sometimes we have given the perception that we're only concerned about getting the deal done, and we're not looking long term, and we're short term thinkers. But certainly to be successful, especially as an economic developer in the municipal environment, you really have to be in line with your planning departments and your other disciplines at the city, and you certainly are looking more long term to be successful. Not to say that sometimes maybe we might be short minded or give that perception, but really to be successful, we have to look long term, and at the end of the day, how are things going to be for our community, which helps us to be more successful in bringing more projects to your community and helping projects expand. So that's one of the misconceptions I've encountered, and certainly we do, if we're going to be successful in economic development, especially at the municipal level, we have to be thinking more long term than just getting a deal done and moving on to the next.
Very nice. Thanks. Okay, Jackie, what do you think?
Similar to what Harry was saying, I think that a misconception is that we're all trying to achieve different goals. But in reality, we're just approaching it by different perspectives, right? I think at the end of the day, our outcome is the same. We all want great places where people want to live, work, and invest in. And specifically for economic developers, I think sometimes we're viewed as we are only chasing jobs and we're only chasing investment regarding or regardless of the outcome, right? I think this is something very interesting that I see it's changing, and it's changing more into what's the balance between economic growth and quality of life. And we can talk more about it later, but yeah, I think that as economic developers, we need to adjust and have the community input in mind as well.
That's great. Okay, Tom, what do you think?
I really like Jacqueline's comments about economic development. That was one of the comments I was going to make, that they're always chasing the jobs, if it's 5, 10, or 500, and that's obviously not true. And I think the other misconception is that government entities sometimes look at the development community as all about money and how much money they can make. And that's truly not the case. I think we all see the costs that they put into their projects, and a couple of the projects I show later. I know the amount of money that's being spent by these private developers to put in the necessary infrastructure, traffic, mitigation, flood control, all of those things. And there's a lot of them. And then from the government side, I think sometimes we're looked at as being too rigid. So one of the things I think we work on here at Pima County is trying to clearly articulate what some of our top concerns are early in the process for the developers so that they know what our concerns are. And try to understand what's important to them, because if we're able to resolve the top couple items, the project's usually going to be successful from there.
Nice. Okay, the next question that I have specifically for Harry and Tom. So in many communities, economic development teams are focused on attracting investment and jobs, while the planning departments are focused on long-term policy and community goals. So how have you handled situations throughout your career when economic development and community development or planning teams might not align? And did you want to start, Tom?
Sure, more than happy to. I think we don't run into these issues too much. I'll go back to maybe a comment that we talked about. Sometimes economic development is focused on the what they're trying to accomplish, the project, the users that they want to bring to the community. Sometimes they're a little less in touch with some of the things that are important. Down here, we have our conservation land systems, which requires set aside areas, and just working through that and getting our economic development team focused on some of the other hurdles to get to a successful project. And there's numerous ways how we can meet that. We see conservation land systems, you can provide on-site natural area, off-site natural area. And so how we accomplish that, there's always a lot of ways to get the project through, but just working with our economic development team early in advance to identify the issues and problems so that we can accomplish it and get the users into the community.
Nice. Going through that right now. What do you think, Harry?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I start with, and I have throughout my career, I start with the principle that I really can't be a great economic developer unless I'm also a good planner. And that means understanding some of the fundamentals of planning in my community. The general plan, we don't put strategies together in economic development without looking at all those different aspects of what's already been planned and adopted by the citizens in the community. So I think if you start from that perspective, understanding that you really need to understand planning and really be a great economic developer, because they really do need to work together. Because at the end of the day, we're all working to have great projects come to our community and develop a great quality of life. And it takes a lot of disciplines to do that. So that's where I really start from. And doing that has served me very well in my career and working with different departments and the different disciplines.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that too. I think that's important. The carryover, understanding, what each entails, I think is very beneficial. So thanks for that. Okay, this next question might be a little bit contentious. We'll see. So the City of Tucson Planning Commission, we discussed this before the session started. We're reviewing a UDC amendment on data centers, how to regulate them. So this is kind of a big deal now across Arizona, really across the country. Municipalities are reevaluating how zoning, infrastructure, planning, utilities, how all these things apply to data centers. There are concerns about water use, power demand, land consumption, and what the long-term community benefits might be. Some communities, like Tucson and Marona, have responded with new proposed zoning standards, development agreements, specific review processes. But this question is for Jackie. What are some of the most effective steps municipalities have taken to address data centers? And how should communities balance economic opportunity with infrastructure and land use impacts of these uses?
You just told my answer, Thomas. I was going to talk about our new data center policy. And I think basically to answer your question is I think cities are being more proactive versus reactive. We faced that with Project Blue. I don't think we were ready for the reaction that we received from the community and the demands. And so as a consequence, mayor and council really put a lot of emphasis and effort into having something set in place. And so, as you mentioned, now we are working on a data center policy, and it's moving quite fast. I mean, based on city timeline, right? I think you guys are getting close to being finalized sometime this summer. And so that's been very interesting. Along the lines of that, we've had an update on our NDA policy. Now, mayor and council require a quarterly update on NDA projects, and this is new as a result of Project Blue. And the last thing, not new, but maybe could be related is we do have a large water use ordinance. Again, this is not new, but it's tied to this. And so I think being proactive versus reactive and kind of have things set in place so that when big projects do come, cities are ready and know if it's a project that's feasible and the community wants it or not.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. I didn't know about the NDA quarterly review. That's news to me, but yeah, I think that's very interesting. Okay. Next
Thomas, could I
question.
also maybe
Sure.
respond?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this last fall, we also incorporated another ordinance in our city. So you have to have a conditional use permit in order to locate a data center in our community. So we're certainly looking at that policy, understand the concern from communities. We certainly want those that do ultimately develop in our community to be in the proper place. And through a conditional use permit, we can do that. Also, the water policy, we're going to certainly look at that and make sure that they use the closed loop systems, which use a lot less water than I think what the perception is out there.
Yeah.
So those kinds of policies I think will serve the community well and help us to place them where they fit and are compatible with other uses.
Yeah, that's the big one too, right? Water. That's the main sticking point. So, all these regulations it's interesting to see how they're going to evolve as well. This is a new technology. What happens 4 years down the road when now we have a way of building, mega data centers, 100 megawatts and up that they don't require however many millions of gallons of water per month. So super interesting. Okay, the next question I have is for Tom. It's specifically about the entitlement process. And so, entitlement review protects the public interest, but every additional step in that review process can add cost, can delay the project, and it can add a level of uncertainty or ambiguity. And so my question for you is, where does the entitlement process add real value, and where does it become a process just for process's sake?
Great question. In regards to where it provides value, the two most valuable areas, in my opinion, would be in our flood control requirements and in our transportation requirements. How these developments function in our street network, and then ultimately with our flood control regulations that protect for so many year flood events and things like that. One of the biggest complaints we get through our public process from neighbors is these developments are going to make flooding worse. And in my opinion, I think structured developments that go through public processes and ultimately through our, intense site construction projects are much better integrated in than wildcat development where properties are split and homes put on them. So we work really hard through that. The thing that we do at the county where we try to, we do these improvements and these specific site construction permits for the original development are really important. But once we have a graded pad and we have a building out there, we want to eliminate further requirements in regards to going through these engineered processes. So when you add a couple extra parking spaces, or you add an additional drive-through lane, or you want to expand your building slightly, we want to address those things through the building permit process because the impacts on transportation and flood control are really minimal. And I think that's what we've strived for. When you stay within your developed area, we're not looking for you to do things other than your building permit requirements. And that really helps I think it helps our development community, because if they want to add 2 parking spaces, they don't have to go through our site construction process, multiple reviews, all of that stuff. And I think that adds real value, and it gives them the certainty of what they need.
Nice. Yeah, I think that spoke kind of directly to the last question too. And this question sort of tied also for everyone. So many professionals enter planning, economic development, private development without fully understanding the roles and challenges of each of the other disciplines. So building relationships early on can have a lasting impact on future projects and partnerships that might be formed. And so my question for each of you, what are the most effective ways that emerging professionals can build trust and collaboration across these disciplines early in their careers? And so, McKay, hopefully, can you want to start on this one?
Yeah, no, I think from somebody starting out networking, I think the biggest thing is following up on commitments. I have a lot of people who reach out and are interested and they want to learn more about it, and they might have one follow-up, or they might ask a question and then they kind of just go away. And so sometimes we don't always have opportunities that are readily available, but there's people who have stayed connected, and these relationships, at least, I could speak pretty closely to Tucson, and it's a small community. And even though it's a city of 1 million plus, the relationships are long lasting. And so investing the time and investing the effort into those, even if there isn't the immediate gratification, has always served me well. And that's where I've seen other people shine as well.
Perfect. Yeah. And so APA, part of what we do is we try to work with students. We have a mentorship program. And I agree. I think that's exactly the advice that they need is you have to show up. That's the most important thing. Okay. What about you, Jackie? What do you think? And I can repeat the question if anyone needs me to.
Yeah, I think echoing on what was said, cross training has been super beneficial for me. I'm an economic developer. I am not an engineer, I'm not a planner, and probably my knowledge in those areas is less than 1%. But I do know a lot of planners, I do know a lot of engineers, I know a lot of people in the industry, and honestly, making connections and building relationships has saved me a million times. When there's a question that I do not know the answer to, I know who does. And I think that's sometimes all we can do. And as economic developers, sometimes we're the connectors, right? We connect all the right people that know all the right answers. And it sounds easy, but it's harder than it is. And again, what my case say is just following through and with your commitments, and build that, make sure that you're reliable and that people can come to you and they know that they can get an answer, maybe not today, but that you will work on it.
Yeah, we often play the role in economic development as being a facilitator and providing information that we have from different disciplines or from even other outside agencies. And so, understanding that's part of your role, but making sure that you're communicating accurate information, so confirming or reconfirming. But then also that, a fundamental thing that economic developers need to do is to understand those different disciplines, especially if you're working in a municipal environment and different disciplines within your city, as you understand at a general level and can work with those different disciplines, understand where they're coming from and what's key for them, then you can be a much better facilitator and communicator. And that will build your trust within your organization as well as outside of your organization as you work with clients, as they know they can rely upon your word. Often that takes confirming and reconfirming information, but I think that's essential for us to be successful, because we're often facilitating and communicating information to different parties and to our clients, and understanding the important aspects of all of that, and then the fundamental requirements that each of the different disciplines have will serve us well as our clients.
That's great. Okay, Tom, what do you think?
I'll make two comments. All the comments made were great. I think one of the things that we really like the most is when we have interns in college reaching out to us to do a summer internship here, so they can really understand what the government does in the development process. I think it really helps them as they go out and get their jobs, either with other jurisdictions or potentially working with, like McKay or some of the private sector people. When you understand it from the government side, by being kind of in the weeds, I think it totally teaches them what the environment really is, what we're doing here, how we're working with our private sector developers. So that's one thing. And then the second thing, we work with every type of developer and consultant. And when you break into the field, mean what you say and say what you mean. And so if you're going to say, I'm going to get back to you in the next 45 days and I'm going to change this requirement in the specific plan to say this, do it. We have consultants where when they say they're going to do something, I don't even have to check it, because I know their word is their honor. And so they are going to make those changes. We have other consultants that we have, through the building permit, site construction and development process, we have to, trust but verify. And so that makes it a little more challenging. So we're working on a collaborative process, and our goal is usually the same as the private sectors. We want to get these projects through to completion. And so having us be able to absolutely trust the other side. It's a two-way street. I think, we commit to what we're going to do too, but I think those are two things that really help our future leaders as they break into the field.
I like it. Yeah. Again, something that students, I always try to convey to them that it's a really good idea to know what happens on the government side. So working in the public sector is pretty helpful, even if you know that you want to go into the private sector. It's good to see both perspectives. And so I early in my career worked for the public sector. Totally agree. Very helpful to see what it's like on the other side. And so this leads into
Thomas, one last comment on that.
Sure.
I'm sure you can relate. I know I can. Like when we were in college and we were taking these classes, right? You think of the process as one way, and until you're out there in the environment, in the real world, how the process really functions.
Yeah.
We're not just designing buildings and things like that. We're doing a lot of the nitty gritty, all of those things, and that's what is so valuable about it, in my opinion.
It is, yeah. That's a great point too. Is that what you learn in school? I went to U of A, master's in planning, not necessarily what it's like in the real world. And I've worked in New York, I worked in New Mexico, now here in Arizona, and some subtle differences, some major differences between all three of those places. But yeah, getting multiple perspectives, very good idea. And so the next question I have also for everyone, if you could just share an example of a project where strong collaboration between planners, economic development staff, private developers where you had a project and this collaboration led to a significantly better outcome. So let's start with Jackie. Did you want to start us off on this one?
Yeah, so going back to my other comment about being proactive, I think there are some very exciting things happening in Tucson, specifically with state land. The project I wanted to bring up, and Thomas, you can probably share more about, is H2K. H2K. It's a site we are getting ready basically for development, and it takes a lot of different partners to get that site ready. It's amazing. We have had a couple of visits already from interesting or interested companies that might want to build something there. And it was just there. It was state land that's just sitting there. And we have pictures to show later, but again, just being proactive versus reactive and having site ready land is very exciting.
Yeah, and that's a great example too. It's funny, I sat down and thought about all of the different reviewing agencies and everyone that had a hand in developing that framework plan. So we worked with the city on a framework plan for H2K. It's a 2,800 acre industrial master plan development. And the list was like 20, 25 names long, like, ADOT, ASLD, people at the county. It was just, yeah, several different departments. Great project, great example of collaboration. So thanks for that, Jackie. Okay, what do you think, Harry? What's a
Uh,
good project example?
yeah, there are several things that come to mind. One is that comes to my mind is many years ago, working in a community and working on an industrial development, an industrial park that was planned. We had a great proposal come from a company that wanted to locate there, and we initially thought that okay, everything fits the zoning, you know, and building height was fine, we thought, and then we get more information from them. And what was changing at that time, this is probably 20, 25 years ago, what was changing in the market at that time, what used to be a typical industrial building, maybe 32-foot clear inside, and so you'd maybe have a 40-foot tall building, fits within zoning. Our zoning code and many zoning codes were, for an industrial district was about a 40-foot high building. Then the industry started to change and customers started to require a 40-foot clear building. And does your zoning match up with that? And so we had a prospect that came in and needed, more like a 50-foot building because they were 40-foot clear inside. And our zoning code was 40 feet for an industrial district. So how do you address that, especially when your client doesn't want to, go through a zoning process or have their name out there in the zoning process? And so working with our planning department, looking at what was happening in the market and knowing that we would probably have request after request, looked at that. What are the changes in the market? How's the market changing? And then working with planning, understanding that, working with legal, and how can we address that, and doing a text amendment basically to our code allowed us to change that for that client. The client was able to stay secure with their name until they were ready to announce it. So, that's I think a basic example of things that happen in the market. Sometimes market changes make sense and we need to adopt our code where it makes sense. It doesn't always make sense, but that was a good collaboration that happened quickly and addressed not only a challenge that we had with that first client that brought that to our attention, but also other projects that would be coming through the community.
That's great. Okay, McKay, I'm sure you have some good examples of projects that were collaborative.
Yeah. So we had we had been working with Geico. They had a 125,000 square foot office on the east side of town. We were actually working with them for about 7 years to try to find whether it was an expansion of their existing space or to find a new space. The search got pretty exhaustive, and at one point in time, we had narrowed it down to only 100 sites. and then we're able to kind of keep fine tuning it. And we finally selected a site at Keno and I-10 that's part of the bridges. And we needed 20 acres for Geico. The only way that we could facilitate that was in order to buy 112 acres that was all zoned R1. And so we needed, Geico was ready to move, and they're ready to get out of Tucson and look at another city because it was so challenging to find a site. And so we had to work closely with the city in order to keep the jobs here in Tucson and to move that forward. So within 18 months, we had to acquire the land, rezone it, and build a 200,000 square foot office building for Geico. And so that is an extremely tight time frame for anybody who knows, but we were able to work closely with the city, and we were able to accomplish that. And then, initially the city's initial comment was, okay, well, let's just rezone the Geico and then you come back and do everything else. And our comment was, well, we need to get comfortable with the whole 112 acres in order to move forward with the 20. So we were able to rezone 112 acres, build the building, do all that in a very expedited time frame. And now the project, I'll talk a little more about it later, but it's a very successful project now. And then maybe just another quick example, but just brief shout out to the Pima County. They have been great to work with at our project, our Uptown project, which is the redevelopment of the Foothills Mall. Worked with them early on to have flexible zoning. We had no idea what exactly we wanted to do, but we have flexibility in the uses and in the zoning and heights to do something. And again, I'll share more about that here in just a little bit, but I think what we're providing there is a phenomenal outcome for everybody involved, but it all started with the collaboration with Pima County and putting the zoning and uses in place up front.
Nice. All right. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about Foothills Mall a little later too, because it's on my list, and just how it started from just like nothing to what we have today and what we're going to see over the next few years. For me, definitely the project that comes to mind is the Amazon distribution facility down on Kolb Road. 750, 1,500 jobs across the entire spectrum of pay, from entry level to managers. And when we brought all our stakeholders together on this one, we have our economic development team, the property owner, the Port of Tucson, where the property is located, ultimately Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, which flies planes over the facility. So all of those stakeholders coming together to make sure their interests were, their concerns were addressed and mitigated to the best that we could. And I think what we have is a great product with a substantial amount of jobs, which adds new families to our community, which supports our housing. And so just this one project that we worked really hard on to get to built really gives an example of, when you have these high, decent paying jobs and a lot of jobs, really provides a benefit to the community. And I think that it's had a positive effect on, home prices in Rita Ranch and some of the area because of the amount of jobs we created down there.
Very nice. Yeah. And Katie just put a link. I've seen some additional movement at Uptown. Great project, super exciting project. The city is a much better place for Bourne having developed it. It's incredible. And so, yeah, I'm excited to hear more about that later on. Okay. The next question I have for Jackie and Harry, dealing with opportunity zones. And so they were intended to drive long-term private investment into underserved areas. But communities have they've been seeing some mixed results depending on local planning, infrastructure, market conditions. And in many cases, the designation alone has not been enough to catalyze meaningful redevelopment. And so a two-parter question. I was hoping you could just give just a brief overview of what an opportunity zone is, if anyone's on the call that doesn't know what that is. And then looking back, what you feel opportunity zones have taught us about aligning private investment with community planning and economic development goals. So Jackie, did you want to start us off on that one?
Yeah, so we're actually going through the process of selecting sites for Opportunity Zones 2.0. So this question is perfect timing. Basically, Opportunity Zones are tax incentives, but they are tied to specific zones that are nominated first by municipalities to the state, and then the state submits on behalf of the state, and then they're designated. I'm not a CPA, so I won't go into the details of the actual tax incentive, but yeah, talk to a CPA for more information on that. And in terms of learnings that we're using for Opportunity Zones 2.0 is we learned that tax incentives don't create investment on their own. There are some requirements into designating an opportunity zone and selecting them. But what we learned is that the zones that were the most successful were the ones that were ready for development and already had strong partnerships and strong fundamentals. Because again, you can select a zone, but if nobody is looking at that site, if developers are not really interested in that site, if there's not a strong foundation for it, even with this tax incentive, nothing will be developed. And so we are keeping that in mind as we look at potential zones for 2.0, but that was the greatest takeaway for us.
Nice. Okay, what do you think, Harry?
No, yeah, Jackie did really great explaining that. It's exactly right. You know, one of the things that reminded us was that a bad site does not become a good site because, you know, you have an incentive, in this case, a federal incentive on, capital gains taxes. However, for a pretty good site, it could make it very active very quick. And I think Arizona saw a lot of that happen. And I think in many respects, Arizona led the country, or was among one of the leading states in the country in terms of attracting the funds from capital funds into opportunity zone funds. And sometimes where you would see a project maybe kick off a building, if it's a spec building, and maybe they had a 100-acre site, they'd build one building and let the rest of the site sit until the market matured. They would go ahead and build out the site with multiple buildings. So Arizona saw a lot of benefits that way. And then, of course, if you could be real targeted and your sites were ready in a redevelopment area, you certainly had some significant benefits. The painful part is they've changed the program, and so now it's even more challenging to meet some of the requirements. And in a way, maybe that's good, because 10 years ago, where you qualified and maybe you've been able to bring up your community, and so now you're not qualifying, that's good in a sense. But in some cases, I'm concerned that maybe some of us have probably missed that opportunity, because maybe some of our sites where we had the opportunity zones weren't ready. Now they're coming ready, but they may not meet the current requirements of the Opportunity Zone 2.0. So that's certainly a challenge for some of Arizona, but I know there are several areas being approved for it. So it certainly can be a catalyst for development. Seen that happen in around Arizona. But Jackie's exactly right. You know, it needs to be a good site, and it can make it better and make it a catalyst for development. But if it's a bad site, it's probably not going to go forward. It's not going to, the capital gains benefits probably not going to make it go forward.
Yeah. And I've heard some interesting things about opportunity zones as well. And so, hey, maybe that's the next session that we do, is on opportunity zones. Great idea. I'm all for it. Okay. Let's see. The next question I have for McKay and Tom. So Arizona continues to experience significant population and economic growth. It creates new challenges related to housing, infrastructure, workforce development, water use, and land availability. These issues will require closer coordinations across multiple disciplines in the years to come. And so my question for you, As Arizona communities continue to grow rapidly, what trends or challenges do you think will most impact collaboration between not just planning departments, but also private developers, economic developers, over the course of the next 5 to 10 years? So did you want to start us off on that one, McKay?
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, a lot in that question. As we're one of the major things that we're running into is, and Thomas had mentioned it earlier, is there's some significant costs that are when we're looking at new land opportunities, and they're not just on-site costs. A lot of times it's off-site costs, or there's some, especially in Tucson, without a loop system or another freeway, with only having a single freeway that's going through, and with the growth expanding across the freeways, the growth in some instances has gone faster than what the improvements are. And so what makes it challenging is when maybe from a commercial or residential perspective, the land is ready, but the infrastructure isn't yet in place. And we've looked at this at some of our projects, even and I'll talk a little more about it, but we just acquired some land at Twin Peaks and I-10. The interchange was recently redone, and I say recently, I mean, it was 10 years ago, but it was improved, and now you're seeing the development happen, and now you're creating strain on improvements that were intended to last much longer than that. And then it's, where's the burden of those costs, and how is that being managed, and how's that being planned for? So there's a lot of dollars that could be spent to do a lot of good, but there's only so many dollars that the municipalities have to spend and be working on. And so having infrastructure in place is such a critical component. If we don't have good infrastructure, then likely we're not looking at the site, or we're putting a pin on the map and we're saying, okay, we'll come back in 5 years and we'll look at it when the infrastructure catches up. And so something for us that we're just a quick growing community. And so there's a lot of work to be done. And then there's a lot of coordination of us understanding with the municipalities of what their plans are. And so that we could be working together and having the best end product as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Tom, what do you think?
Well, I agree with everything McKay said. And one of the things that I think we look at here is we look at economic development as commercial and residential. We're in a housing crisis here in Pima County, and the cost of homes are far out of reach for many people. And so I think we look at it as, how do we chip away at it? There is no one solution. Just to touch on one of McKay's projects, right? They're building, a couple hundred apartments or whatever over at Foothills Mall. Those are people that are probably going to sell residences and move into these potentially. And so that's going to open up housing stock for other people to move up. One of the things we're also looking for is the densification of properties where existing infrastructure exists. Pima County has a lot of high density zoned area near the boundary of the city. And so how can we increase units, build higher heights, add more units? We use the example here. If you build one house on 10 acres, it's going to be really expensive. If you build 3, it's going to be a little less expensive. What if you build 30 or 100 on there? And so I think we're looking for those opportunities where we're not in the conservation land system to really provide a denser product, where we leverage our existing infrastructure and transportation and sewer lines that are already in place to maybe explore these 3, 4, 5-story products that can add more units, and probably at a lower price point, because it's challenging for anyone who doesn't own a house to own a house right now. So we see it as economic development as a residential solution also.
Yeah, very true. And I did see the housing study. I was shocked at just how big of a gap there is in what currently exists, what we are projected to need. I mean, I read somewhere that we should have something in the range of about 10,000 paper lots coming online every year, and we have around 2. And so, yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, Pima County, they did a housing study. Look it up. Very interesting. They presented to Planning Commission. Staff did a few months ago. very interesting read. Okay. Before we go on, I'm seeing no questions in the Q&A box. And so any questions, we're covering such a broad range of topics. So if you have any questions for any of our panelists, please, there we go. That one was ready to go. Martin Moreno. Okay, thank you. We'll get to your question first in a little bit. I think we have time for maybe two more moderated questions. And then I want to hand it over to our panelists to have them present some projects. So this one specifically for McKay related to placemaking and destination development. So communities are increasingly competing for residents, visitors, talent, and investment based on the quality of place, not just infrastructure or economic incentives. Successful development often creates a sense of identity and an experience that keeps people coming back, while communities that fail to evolve can struggle to remain relevant in this changing market. And so, in your opinion, what makes people more likely to choose or spend time in any specific place? And are municipalities adapting quickly enough to those changing expectations?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, and there's a lot of different ways to answer it. I think a couple things. I think what we've been able to do, like with Pima County and with City of Tucson and other municipalities, of having flexibility of zoning allows us to be flexible with the times. For example, at the bridges that I mentioned earlier, we had initially, in some of our early on plans, we showed, and this was in 2018 and 2019, we showed 3 million square feet of office buildings. Geico opened in August of 2019. Fast forward 6 months, and the office world disappears. If we didn't have flexible zoning, we would have had to go all the way back through our process and kind of start at ground zero. We were able to quickly shift and pivot and be able to start looking at other uses. And so I think that's one thing. I think another thing that I mentioned earlier is, and our perspective is, it's not all about the profit and it's not all about one deal. So how can we look at these projects holistically? So when we're looking at projects, we had 112 acres at the bridges. We just acquired 140 acres at Twin Peaks, which is part of it's 800 acres is the total project that we did a JV with D.R. Horton. We acquired 400 plus acres out in Vail. So we're looking at larger projects, and part of it is exactly for the reason that you said, is people want experiences, they want convenience, they want something that's thought out and planned, and that's the places that they choose to live, shop, work, and all those. So our theory is if we can control these larger master plan projects, and if we have a division within our company that services all those different needs, and so we can do residential, commercial, land, multifamily, all in-house, it sets us up to create those environments that we believe people want to live in. And then with zoning in place, that we can be adaptive to future trends and what things want to happen in the future, and not be so locked into kind of what today's vision is, knowing that the vision's going to change down the road.
All right. Great answer. So I have one last question, and we'll make this a quick one so we can get into everyone's presentations. But we've talked about a lot of issues in development. So this is for everyone. If you could change one thing about how Arizona communities process, support, or plan for development, what would that one fix be? And let's start with Tom.
Well, what a great question. Thanks for picking me first. What I will say is, I think the best thing we can do as the government entity is provide more certainty to our development partners. I know when I talk to our big developers, our big home builders, all the way down to the Quick Trip at the corner who's coming in, or a mom and pop, architecture office, the certainty is what they value the most. Yes, we work to reduce our fees, and we have we reduce our fees every year, that our budget, we meet our budget, but it's the certainty for them. The unknown process scares off a lot of projects, I believe. And so if we're able to provide more certainty for things that we want, I think that would be the most helpful to really unlock development and get more exciting, interesting products coming to the market.
Very nice. Okay, Harry, what do you think?
Yeah, certainly agree with what Thomas said. I think one of the significant changes that's been made in the past, and I'm very happy about it, and I believe a lot of staff members are as well, as that's administrative site plan reviews. So that's certainly what Thomas was talking about. I think that gave a lot of certainty, or at least a step forward in certainty. Certainly, we have design standards and adopted those design standards and policies by our council, and those things are written. And if you have administrative site plan approval process, and you meet those design standards, then you pretty much have a lot more certainty in knowing that, hey, my site plan is going to be approved because I'm meeting these standards. And so that administrative site plan review process, I think, and some other reviews have certainly helped that. And I hope that's maybe something McKay, hopefully, if he's experienced that since that's been instituted, hopefully that's been a good process for him. I know projects that we work with really appreciate that.
I guess that's the natural progression. McKay, did you want to touch on this?
Yeah. So lot of different ways to answer this, but I think the way that we communicate, if I could change one thing, the way that we communicate and the way that we make commitments would be the way. There's so many different perspectives out there, and everybody has a different priority. And so I think I like to, we can disagree on things. Doesn't mean we need to be disagreeable. But I think there's a lot in today's world where people want to be disagreeable and they want to be combative, and it's challenging because nobody ends up getting in the right direction, or things don't end up going that smoothly. And so we have tried our best when we're working on these large projects to communicate with the public of what we know and what our plans are, and understand that we can make some people happy, but we can't make everybody happy, and trying to get feedback. But I think what's helpful is if you have the thought process of, okay, we can disagree and we can take feedback and collaboration in, and we can fine tune plans there. But it has to be a two-way street, and we have to have people who are willing to work with us and vice versa. And we've had some really positive experiences with that, with neighborhoods where initially there's pushback, but through communication and relationships, we come to an agreement on, okay, hey, maybe initially we didn't want this, but now it makes a little more sense, and you've made these changes, and it ends up into becoming a very positive, not only project, but some of the relationships that we've created with the communities and neighborhood members are long-lasting relationships. And so it ends, if it's done the right way, it can be very positive. If it's done the wrong way, then it gets to be very disruptive and very messy.
Great response. Okay, Jackie, one thing you would fix or change?
I would love to see more creativity, and I know this is probably like a bad word for like planners. Code is code, right? And it is what it is. But we have seen some examples, specifically in Tucson, where our planning team has been a little bit more creative and is trying to adjust to the times. For example, I know in like the downtown area, parking has been reduced to what it usually was, because it is supposed to be a walkable area, because we have transit, because of other things, right? And this is parking requirements. Or, for example, middle housing, right? Also a very interesting area, and things that are happening for middle housing. And I think as economic developers, it's really exciting to see when the code is being adjusted, or our planning department is trying to find creative ways to solve issues for our city.
I like it. Thanks, Jackie. Okay, I am totally switching gears now and turning it over to our panelists. They've put together presentations about some of the projects that they're currently working on. And so we can start with Harry. Take it away.
Great. Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, so I wanted to give everyone just a little overview of our community from a high level so you understand Buckeye a little bit better. You can go to the next slide. So this is a snapshot of the map of the Phoenix Valley. You can see where Buckeye is on the western edge of the Phoenix Valley along the I-10 corridor, and with also State Route 85 intersecting it. What a lot of individuals don't realize about Buckeye is how large we are. So 640 square miles by land area makes us the largest city in Arizona. In fact, you can take, if you look over there to the right, to that other map that has all the different land masses of many of the cities, 16 valley cities, you can put them in Buckeye's land area and you still haven't filled it up. So that should give you a sense of how big Buckeye is, and over time. We've also been very fast growing. From 2017 to 2022, we were the #1 fastest growing city, not just in Arizona, but in the US, and we're still continuing to grow very fast today. Go to the next slide. So why do we think the growth is going to continue? This map makes it pretty clear in our opinion. If you looked at the developed land, which is the gold area here in the Phoenix Valley, you can see, obviously, you're driven the Phoenix Valley, you can see all those developed areas. And then, of course, there's some vacant state trust land in different pockets. But largely, the private developable area is on the west side. And a huge chunk of that, the majority of it in the Phoenix communities in the west side, is in Buckeye. You can see that purple area. And that purple area is along a major corridor for us, the Sun Valley Parkway area, north of I-10, and major developments are happening there. I'm going to go to the next slide. So this slide looks like it's not working. I don't know if you need to click on it. Anyway, it's designed for the slide on the left there to show you where the growth is happening. And it's growth happening along that Sun Valley Parkway area, as well as other areas of the community. But to give you a sense of how large Buckeye is going to be over time, we're about 17% built out today in terms of our residential areas and projections. So we'll be over 1 million people over time. One community along that Sun Valley Parkway area, north of I-10, which just opened up houses this last year, and their first phase of development is over 30,000 acres. That one community itself, at build out, will be over 300,000 people. Wow. Gives you a sense of how large Buckeye will be in the future, and where we sit today. So we have a lot of opportunity and a lot of connection with our planning department and other departments in the city, especially planning the city and developing strategic plans on the economic development side in coordination with planning and development. So this shows you what our commercial growth has been over the last 3 years, which has been pretty significant. Over 100 projects that are, resident serving or job creating development. Over 7 million square feet, those being in industrial, in general terms, in these general areas, industrial, retail, and services, and healthcare. So major retail happening, especially along Verrado Way, where we have actually at the Verrado Way and I-10 intersection, 6 different corners north and south that are under construction today, over 1.5 million square feet of retail coming to our community, as well as healthcare in that area as well, where 2 hospitals have started their first phases of the Banner Healthcare, and also Brazo Healthcare started their medical office and clinic operations, in which in the future they've already purchased land for major hospitals. So very excited about all the projects that are happening in our community, and hopefully this gives you a good overview of us and learn a little bit more about Buckeye.
Very nice. Thanks, Harry. And if you have any questions for Harry, here is his contact information. Take a screenshot. Okay. Next up, Jackie. Did you want to give us an overview of what you have going on?
Yeah, it was really fun trying to pick a couple of projects to talk about because there's a lot going on. Our next slide and first project I wanted to bring up was Bass Pro Shops. When we were first talking to Bass Pro Shops, their first question was like, how many lakes do you guys have in Tucson? And we were like, well, actually zero, but they still came, which is really cool. Bass Pro Shops just opened, I think in April of this year. Opening day was insane. I don't know if anybody was there or saw pictures, but it was insane. People love Bass Pro Shops. They like everyone loved it, which was so funny because all the comments online were great. But this one is actually over at the bridges. I know McKay mentioned that area by Geico. And there's a lot happening in that area as well, very exciting for development. And we were particularly involved in Bass Pro Shops because they did get a sales tax incentive from us. So we were basically working with them from beginning to end. The next project, another one that was really funny for me is Costco, because people were so excited about Costco. This one is going to be over on the Vale area. And again, we were highly involved because they received a sales tax incentive from us as well. But people love Costco and they really needed a grocery store down there. And so yeah, this one is very exciting. We just approved their incentive, and so they're going through the process. And I believe they haven't started construction, but it'll be a really great project for everyone living over there.
I'm excited.
The next project, well, I wanted to talk a little bit about downtown Tucson just as a whole. Anyone that has been living in Tucson for the last 15 years has definitely experienced the change from downtown Tucson back then versus now. Downtown Tucson is so fun. There's so much going on. It's great. And part of it is because we do have a business improvement district in place in downtown, and that drives a lot of development. And then specifically also Rio Nuevo, which is a TIF district. I wanted to talk about two new hotels that we are working on. Both of these hotels will be downtown, and both of these are going through our incentive process. The first one is on 75 East Broadway. This one is going through a shared tax incentive application, and this one is expected to have about 125 hotel rooms, and as you can see from the picture, very cool rooftop bar and pool. And this lot is currently vacant. There's nothing there, and so this would be awesome. And then the second one is a Moxie Hotel. I know Phoenix area has at least one of these, maybe more, I don't know. But this one would bring about 137 hotel rooms, and the total project cost is 34.6 million, and they are going through our GPLET application, which is basically a property tax abatement for 8 years. And then lastly, I wanted to talk, I know I mentioned H2K earlier, but we are trying to be as proactive as possible with land that is vacant, either just inside city limits or state land. And so we have a couple of sites under development that we are getting ready for, that are shovel ready. And we have had very exciting visits to multiple of these sites. Earlier this year, we had a contractors tour where we brought developers and contractors and took them around all these sites to just show the potential and hopefully land a very cool project in one of these. And I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Jackie. And here is her contact information. Okay, next up we have Mackay. Take it away.
Okay. Yeah, you can just go on to the next slide. So, Jackie brought up the bridges, and so if you go to the next one, it shows a plan of what that project is. So what's really interesting, what I really like about this project is when we looked at, you can see Geico, it's kind of the big building pretty close to the center of the image. But when we were looking at this with Geico at the very beginning, there was only 10 buildings on site. And this development had been sitting for probably, I mean, it was over 15 years with very little done to it. There was the Costco, the Century Theater, the Walmart, the Dave & Buster's, and then it was McDonald's and some other smaller buildings. And so we came on and like I said, we acquired 112 acres. There's 3 different ownerships that make up this master plan 350 acre development. The university has a tech park, and then where the Costco and Walmart is, that's a separate developer, and that's Tucson Marketplace. But what's really unique about this is, again, with some of the flexibility and what we were able to do with the zoning, now you have over 550 residential units that are made up of a combination of single family homes, garden style apartments, and then multifamily detached apartments. You have now, with the hotel under construction, we'll have over 500 hotel rooms on site. You have right now 100,000 square feet of educational use, with another 50,000 square feet that's under construction, and an additional 100 to 150,000 square feet planned for future phases. And so the variety of uses that were able to be created here, what we were able to do with the collaboration of the city and other people to help revitalize this area, has made it one of my favorite projects that I've had a chance to work on. Do you want to go to the next? So then I want to talk about Uptown, which I've referenced before, and then you can just go to the slide. So this gives you a site plan. It's kind of hard to see for anybody who's familiar with the what was the Foothills Mall. So it was an enclosed mall that we acquired in December of 2016. We spent a lot of time looking at different plans, and ultimately decided that we were going to demolish the mall. Today there are 4 original buildings that are still left standing, but eventually 2 of those will be demolished as well. So we'll just be left with the AMC Theater, and then one of the existing out parcel buildings that was part of the mall. Everything else is all new construction. Anybody, again, familiar with Tucson? There's not a lot of density in Tucson. For the majority of these buildings, they're all multi-story buildings. So anywhere we have zoning to go 120 feet or 10 stories, whichever is higher. The first building that I believe some of you maybe had a chance to tour a couple months ago is the Astri. It's 158 multifamily or for rent apartments. And we actually just got our C of O yesterday. So we'll be welcoming our first residents this month. And then the next building that we have under construction is right next to it, which is a Hilton Tempo Hotel. And that's scheduled to be open and completed in January of 2017. We'll continue and we'll build it out. And what you see here is the original Foothills Mall was about 600,000 square feet under roof. This plan here has about 3 million square feet. And that's a combination of residential, hotels, and then a lot of ground floor commercial uses. So again, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of planning that has gone into this, a lot of collaboration with Pima County, and our plans have changed and morphed and will likely continue to change and morph, but they've been a great partner for us to be able to execute on the things that we need, and understanding and acknowledging that our plans change and being accommodating to that as much as possible. So This is an exciting project to see that's well underway now and will continue to progress. So then the last one is Cascada. This is maybe just a look forward into the future. This is, I referenced it earlier, it's our portion of this acquisition was 140 acres. We partnered with D.R. Horton, and the total acquisition was just over 800 acres, of which you have about 650 that's developable. There's some open space and washes that go throughout. But what we're looking to do here, it's located on the north side of Twin Peaks and on the east side of I-10. We feel it's a great emerging area. What used to be maybe a little green 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago is now kind of in the center of development with everything that's happening out in Marana. So we'll look to execute and do something very similar to what we've done at the Bridges, of having a variety of uses where D.R. Horton, when all is said and done, will have 3,000 homes on this site. And then we will, so we'll have commercial uses, we'll look at hotels, office, and then we will likely do some portion of residential ourselves on our portion of the land. So again, just maybe gives you a little bit of sense of what's going. If you do drive by this area, it's a massive undertaking from a site work perspective. So we're in the process of clearing 220 acres, which is the first takedown. And it's a lot of dirt that's being moved. And so it's an exciting project, and we're excited to announce a few of the people that we have, and think it will be a great project.
Fantastic. Thanks, McKay. All right. Last up, Tom, did you
Sure.
want to introduce us to some of your projects?
Yeah, I just put two of them on here and then put a topic that we're working on in the future. So if you go to the next slide, I put Foothills Mall on here. I was involved in this with one of my team members from the very first day Bourne came in, and they said, hey, we'd like to maybe ask for a variance for a height for a couple things. That was the starting point of what turned into this great redevelopment project. One of the things we looked at from the county perspective is that what made this site unique is that every surrounding property is commercial in nature. We have apartment buildings to the west. We have Walmart, other commercial uses to the north. To the south, we have commercial, and across the street on La Cholla, we have medical and other residential. What we learned in this project is that people in Pima County are excited about unique projects and things that are entertainment based. And what was interesting, this all happened probably 2018 or 19 when we were going through the public process. The question we got the most at public hearings and neighborhood things was, is a True Foods going in here? It wasn't about the height of the buildings. It wasn't about the development. It wasn't about any of that. It was, what were the users going to be? And are you going to be putting a big hotel that my family can stay at? So I think we learned a lot from this project over the years, and just kind of realized we don't only have to build single story commercial. We don't just have to build homes on 5,000 square foot lots. There's unique products that people are excited about, and Pima County can help fill some of those voids that people kind of demand or want from the entertainment and living component. So that's one I put on. Really excited. I drive by it every day, and I see what they're doing, and the team over there at Bourne is great. Second one, a little bit different. This is over on Craycroft and River Road. We are having a development come in that is 55 and over active community. It's not single family. It's 2 and 3 story buildings. They're going to have pickleball. They're going to have a whole bunch of other uses. And what makes this unique is it kind of ties together the recreational opportunities. It's right on the loop. One of the things that was critical for us was providing a buffer to the loop, but connections also. And if you look to the east, where the access comes from Craycroft, there's a river park there that's owned by the county. And just the collaboration with the ownership group and our flood control team to provide sufficient parking and access and how all that works. It was a really great product. and I'm excited about them breaking ground here probably in the next few months to see what comes up and just add a different type of product. And so those are the two I put on here. Last thing I'll talk about on the last slide. Pima County is really focused on housing right now. We're working through a housing omnibus where we take different changes that we want to make and package them all together. A couple things we're trying to do is increase the density in our MU zone, which is Flowing Wells, Kleindale, over on Benson Highway. We want people to do multi-story products, hopefully approaching 5 stories, which the city's really good about that. We see these developments in the city that are 3 and 4 stories, and we think the county can, provide some of those products also. 2 other things, we want to allow 3-story homes on compact lots, maybe where you just have a garage and a landing area. You go upstairs to the main living area. You go upstairs again to the bedrooms. We don't have that product in Pima County, and we're excited about having maybe our home builders develop that. Last thing, flexible subdivision option. What we want to do is we want people to take the zoning yield that they could get on their property, and they can actually cluster them and leave open space. So if you have 100 acres and you're allowed 100 homes, instead of putting a home on every acre, you can cluster them on 10 acres or 15 acres and then leave the rest natural. So what we hear from our development community is costs are expensive. And so if we don't have to build bridges over washes, 5 miles of pavement instead of 2, sewer lines that are a third of the length that would normally be done, we see that as a valuable opportunity. So those are the things we're working on in the future to try to help keep costs down and provide different options for the property owners in our community.
Fantastic. And yeah, conservation subdivisions, Pima or Coconino County has a really good example of a successful subdivision, conservation subdivision ordinance. We actually had a project that we're currently working on, a conservation subdivision easement up there. They have development density bonuses. And yeah, so 50% open space conserved in perpetuity. And yeah, really, really interesting idea. So I'm excited to see how that one shakes out. So Tom, McKay, Jackie, Harry, thank you all so much for joining us and presenting. And thank you all so much for joining us, all of our attendees. And we will see you later.